They're the teacher, the master, the sensei, the surrogate parent. They protect, comfort, guide, and provide stability. Those of us who gravitate towards these characters often lack this kind of stability in our own lives. Maybe you live a particularly stressful life. Maybe you lack a support system. Maybe the adults that raised you struggled to provide the guidance or structure that you so desperately needed. You know who you are. Owen. Or perhaps you are a mentor and you see your own struggles reflected in these characters. Regardless, having a character who has some fucking idea of what's going on is grounding not only to the main character but to the audience as well. It gives us some kind of safety blanket to grip onto when nothing makes sense. It's a tight hug after a funeral. It's a pair of slippers after walking a mile. It's someone saying, "I'm proud of you." We look up to these characters because we want that kind of affection and support in this desolate land of cynicism and bureaucracy. The real tragedy of mentor characters is that their destiny always begins with some kind of loss. Is this because at a certain age we're all destined to experience loss in one form or another, that this trauma will supposedly make us wiser or stronger? Or is it just destined to give us crippling daddy issues for the rest of our lives? Nothing matters, we're all in a simulation. Wake up, sheeple. Mentors are able to lead in earnest because they know better than anyone the emotional and physical toll of failure or not being good enough. They know the cost of not being the smartest, fastest, or strongest person in the room. They know the severity of the world and how best to navigate it based on their own successes, failures, and trauma. And while each mentor has their own way of training their protege, it's always rooted in the desire to make the hero better. Dear God, please make them better than me. Help them fight the battles that I never could. Help them to right the wrongs that I've created. Help them to not be like me. Help them to be better. This idea of self-hatred or regret has always been deeply rooted in the mentor character trope, despite the fact that these mentor characters are often the ones that we look up to and aspire to be like the most. As far as I can see, there are 3 types of mentor characters. Number 1, the wise mentor. Every debut author's first draft of a mentor. This is the most traditional form of mentor, it's the default category, and it makes the most sense given the role of the character. These are your Irohs, your Obi-Wan Kenobis, Gandalfs, Chirons. These mentors are usually older with decades of vast experience. They might appear to be unassuming, but they'll fuck a bitch up. This type of mentor is the most involved with the protagonist, directly acting as their guardian, right-hand, confidant, or walking exposition. They're there to provide information to the hero whenever they need it and provide that stereotypical sense of calm, comfort, and stability that we often expect from our mentors. Number 2, the oddball hermit mentor. This type begs the question, are they hopped up on MDMA or are they just really wise? I find these characters so interesting because they probably know more than the stereotypical wise mentors, but you would never know that because they just act batshit crazy all the time. These characters are isolated from the world, living by themselves, usually in a forest or swamp of some kind. They are incredibly knowledgeable and clever, but they never give information to the main character in an easy or straightforward way. It's always relayed in some sort of cryptic message that the hero has to figure out on their own. These characters are what everyone's cottagecore lesbian aunt wishes they could be. Sorry, River, but Madame Razz is simply out of your reach. These characters often live in absolute disarray because they just give 0 fucks and they have a weird diet or they're just generally fucking crazy. If you encountered this character in the wild, you would probably think that they'd never be able to handle themselves, and that would be unfortunate for you. Number 3, the grumpy or reluctant mentor. These mentors are superior to all others. They are a complete departure from the traditional mentor while still upholding the same values. These mentors can be any age, they just have to be clinically depressed or a straight up DILF. These are your Shota Aizawas, Hamish Abernathys, Din Djarin's, Tony Starks. Even Phil or John Silver would fit into this category of curmudgeons. God, sometimes I hate the taste of being alive. These are the mentors who never would have seen themselves as teachers, either because they despise children or people in general, they're decidedly unlikable, they're stubborn, impatient, or have no interest in helping anyone but themselves. Through some unforeseen circumstance, these mentors find themselves assisting the development of some type of hero. These are the best mentor types without question. There's nothing more satisfying or inspiring than seeing these caffeine-fueled despondent lumps trying to wrangle the youth. These mentors are pushed to their limits on a regular basis, and as an audience we can witness them growing with their proteges, learning patience, vulnerability, maybe how to use a goddamn hairbrush. We see moments of openness where their tough shell softens and they might actually say something nice for once. These mentors always have some sort of traumatic past or history that has kept them guarded, cynical, and or reluctant to connect with anyone. They very often become a grumpy dad for the hero than anything else, which I've always found endearing and entertaining. Part 1, Uncle Iroh. Uncle Iroh acts as Zuko's shepherd for practically the entire series. He provides the support and love that Zuko never received from his own father. Iroh takes great care in trying to teach Zuko what's important in life. His entire existence and purpose surrounds the well-being and happiness of this young man. When Zuko betrays him and everything he's tried to instill in him, Iroh practically shuts down. He pretty much loses hope. Little did he know that these values and principles that he practically drilled into Zuko's head stuck with him. Zuko was removed from this bloodthirsty, self-important, colonizing environment of the Fire Nation for years. In this time, Iroh was able to impart his own worldview and wisdom onto his nephew in an attempt to ground him, reframe his perspective, and adjust his priorities, and it worked. When Zuko returns to his home, if you can even call it that, he is met with an unprecedented amount of guilt and disappointment. This is not what he wanted, and he knows this is wrong. We can't ignore the fact that Zuko is inherently more empathetic than his sister. We learn in the flashbacks during Zuko alone that he takes far more after his mother, and Azula takes far more after their father. We see the kindness and empathy that Ursa has for the people and things around her, all culminating around her children, but particularly Zuko. This kindness was instilled in him from such a young age, and when Ursa was banished, Zuko still managed to embody that same kindness and empathy. It has been a core part of his personality from the beginning. But who's to say that moral behavior would have persisted if he had been immersed in that toxic environment instead of being banished? We have no way of knowing. When Zuko finally realizes that his decision to return to the Fire Nation and betray his uncle was not only immoral, but very much not what he wanted, he doesn't even get the chance to tell Iroh, not immediately anyway. When Zuko tries to break Iroh out of prison, he finds out that he's already escaped. Zuko eventually finds him at the camp of the White Lotus. Iroh is asleep in his tent, and Zuko patiently waits by his bedside for him to awaken. This already is growth on Zuko's part. At the start of the series, we see the lengths Zuko will go to get what he wants. He is impatient and short-tempered. We are finally seeing Zuko embodying the traits of his mentor and taking to heart the lessons that Iroh instilled in him for so long. When Iroh finally wakes up, Zuko gives an earnest, tearful apology, explaining how ashamed he is of his actions. "I am so sorry, Uncle. I am so sorry and ashamed of what I did. I don't know how I can ever make it up to you." Iroh cuts him off with a heartfelt embrace, and Zuko protests his forgiveness. "How could you forgive me so easily? I thought you'd be furious with me." A natural reaction given the weight of the betrayal, and a testament to Zuko reclaiming his empathetic roots. Iroh replies, "I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you'd lost your way." Ow. I know, I'm a big crybaby. Cinema and television make me cry. I'm a big fucking whiner baby. Get over it. But this scene carries so much weight because it is the culmination of 3 seasons of inner work being done by Zuko and Iroh finally fulfilling his purpose. It has all led to this moment, and Zuko's not even the main character. The success of Zuko's rehabilitation from antagonist to supporting character and his relationship with Iroh cutting so deep is just another testament to the quality of writing and storytelling in this series. But I'm not gonna jerk off Michael and Brian anymore. We already know how good Avatar is. Part 2, Madame Razz. Madame Razz is one of my favorite characters in She-Ra. By the end of the show, there's still so little we know about her, and yet her characterization is so distinct that it's hard for her not to make an impression on the audience. She's essentially the crazy old lady that lives in the middle of the magical forest. I love her so fucking much. I mean, look at her. She's fucking perfect. Razz's tether to She-Ra is never defined, but her knowledge of Etheria and magic in general leads her to be an ally in understanding this fantastical world. Razz only references 2 characters in the story, Mara and Adora, confusing their names each time. Her grip on reality is tenable at best, and we see her witnessing flashbacks and overlaying them with reality. Very often, it seems like she struggles to tell the difference between them. But it's implied that she has this grander vision of the universe that somehow keeps her grounded. She's not on crack, that's just the way she is. Don't get me wrong, Razz knows a lot more than she lets on, and it's clear she might have a greater knowledge of magic on Etheria than anybody. She's just never gonna give you a straight answer. Adora visits her intermittently and often by accident, and Razz is always there to give her some insight on Etheria, Mara, or She-Ra. This often comes in some form of seemingly nonsensical babble on Razz's part, and Adora has to decipher its meaning on her own. This, of course, frustrates Adora, as she is incredibly analytical, strategic, and blunt, but she always eventually figures out what Razz is saying. The episode that I want to discuss is the 9th episode in Season 4, titled Hero. Razz spends the entire episode trying to bake a pie. She makes it very clear that she has to bake a pie today. We don't know why, but we see her frantically gathering supplies in an effort to make one. Adora tries to ask Razz questions she has about Etheria and is met with the same usual babble. Mara, we have to make a pie today, you promised! Calling Adora by Mara's name and getting Adora frustrated once again. We then hear Razz call out Adora's name, but Mara comes into frame. Mara who is dead. It's now a different day. Adora is nowhere to be found, and now Razz is talking to Mara. What is going on? What have you done to me, Temptress? Let me explain. Instead of Razz seeing her flashbacks in the form of memories like a fucking normal person, we see Razz experiencing her flashbacks as her reality. It's actually kind of sad because we realize that she's not some old woman who's losing her memory. She's literally experiencing her previous memories as her current reality. This is all real to her. She's fading in and out of her past and present as fast as she can turn a corner. We don't know how long she's been like this, but it's so normalized for her that it must be a while. Through this series of flashback reality jumps, we learn that Mara and Razz used to be very close. Razz helped teach Mara about the magic within Etheria and how it exists all around them. The Sword of Shira can be used to channel Mara and Adora's magic, but their magic always existed within themselves. You cannot control magic. Magic simply is. We continue to learn about the colonizing pigs that the first ones were and how they tried to siphon magic from Etheria to create their own fucking Death Star. Mara stopped them, but it cost her life. Grab some Oreos and Kleenex, this is far from over. Razz's flood of memories allows Adora to get the information she needs about Etheria, but in doing so, Adora realizes how much is really going on here. She learns that the first ones were actually the villains and that Mara did everything she could to keep the world safe. Razz blames herself for Mara's demise and does what she can to protect and inform Adora in her own special way. But amidst the chaos and amidst the babble, we get this one mildly coherent but heart-wrenching line from Razz. Oh, Mara, you were never supposed to succeed. They made a plan for you. Razz could not do anything to help. I am sorry. Adora, Razz, and Swiftwind reach the remains of Mara's ship and with Razz's help, uncover a message meant for Adora. It's Mara's final word, exposing the ill intent of the first one's plan to exploit the magic of Etheria and use it as a planet-destroying weapon. The message ends with Mara urging Adora to keep Etheria in hiding so the planet doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Mara offers some encouragement to Adora with a smile on her face even as she's suffering from internal bleeding. I opened a portal to a completely empty dimension and pulled Etheria in. I hid us from the rest of the universe to keep everyone safe. This is the one place they'll never find us. I saw what they would do, the deaths that would follow. Hiding is our only option. I couldn't stop it, I wasn't strong enough, but you, Adora, you will be more powerful than they ever planned. You can save the world we love. The episode ends with Razz placing the finished pie she baked on Mara's final resting place as a memoriam to her lost friend. She was brave, my Mara. Give me a fucking break. I need to cry for a second. Okay, my soul has finally returned to my body. Part 3, Shota Aizawa. Shota Aizawa is my king. He could kick me in the face and I would ask for seconds. And as much as I'd love to thirst over this character, I promise this section actually has a point. When we meet Shota Aizawa, he's your typical strict, hard-ass teacher. A bit eccentric, but still a hard-ass. The standard he sets for his students is nothing short of unreasonable in comparison to the other classes. We see how much extra work Class 1A has to do, and how relentless Aizawa can be, so why is he regarded as one of the most beloved characters in the entire show, scoring in the top 10 by popularity consistently? Well, as always, the short answer is trauma, but the long answer is he's just written really well and his intentions are always good. Now, anyone will tell you, good intentions alone a good character does not make. And while intent doesn't excuse bad behavior, we learn that Aizawa's method of teaching has continued to prepare his students for what they'll be facing and therefore given them a much better chance at staying alive. His strictness is not without merit. We don't learn much about Aizawa's backstory until season 5. It comes pretty abruptly, but that is by design. It's a shock to him too. Let me explain. We learn that while Aizawa was in high school, shortly after receiving his hero license, he and his friend Shirakumo were caught in a brawl with a group of villains. Aizawa was left relatively unharmed, but Shirakumo was crushed under tons of rubble after rescuing someone from the debris that would ultimately lead to his demise. It's implied that Aizawa blames himself for his friend's death and that he feels he could have done more to protect him had he not been so hesitant in nature. It is revealed that Shirakumo's body was actually recovered shortly after his death by the series antagonist and literal ballsack, All for One. Shirakumo's body and his quirk were picked apart to create a new being named Kurogiri, who acts as the guardian for the League of Villains. Kurogiri has no memory of Aizawa or Yamada despite the memories they shared together at UA all those years ago. This practically tears Aizawa apart. His dearly departed friend is now a meat puppet for the most notorious villain in the entire world, and there's seemingly nothing he can do about it. As a result, we see the most stoic character in the entire show, a character who makes a point to not show emotion or make a fuss, screaming, crying, and begging for his dear friend to come back to him. Aizawa does his best to jog Shirakumo's memory. I was always hesitating. I didn't have a heart like you. You acted on instinct, I overthought, but you pulled me along. Nothing could ever dampen your spirits, looking ahead, never worrying about consequences, despite the fact that that single misstep would mean your death. You know, Yamada and I are teachers now. I'm incredibly strict with my students. Do you know why? I didn't want them to make the same fatal mistake you did. I didn't want them to become heroes who devalued their own lives in the name of empty justice. At the same time, I wanted them to be like you. I wanted to shape them into heroes who motivate and inspire. I want all the greatest heroes to live long and happy lives. When Aizawa describes his friend Shirakumo, it is bittersweet. He describes him as a ray of light, always willing to help others, but also someone who rushed into situations without a plan, acted irrationally, and ultimately cared little for his own life. Aizawa's loss of his friend has stayed with him, and that is certainly reflected in his teaching style. He wants his students to live long, happy lives, despite hero work being incredibly dangerous. He wants them to enter situations fully equipped to win, and if they can't, they had better get the fuck out. Aizawa's teaching philosophy is anchored in the greatest of intentions, but also severe trauma. It's proactive. It's an attempt to prepare his students for any possible situation. So of course some might be opposed to it, but that doesn't change the fact that despite his strictness, Aizawa is the teacher who's most likely to keep his children alive, either through teaching them invaluable skills or risking his own life to save them. He's incredible. Watch My Hero Academia or I'll fucking kill you. Part 46, Using Failure to Help Others. Mentor characters are never written as flawless, but why is that? Well, it's usually because their failures are the reason why the hero is needed, or because they can use their own shortcomings as experience and lessons to prevent the hero from repeating them. After all, it is in failure that we truly learn. It is the job of the mentor to prevent the past from repeating itself. Madame Razz couldn't protect Mara, so she hopes to protect Adora. Iroh was raised to be a war-happy general that ended up getting his son killed. His goal is to keep Zuko from losing sight of what's actually important and to live life for himself. Obi-Wan tried to keep Anakin from being corrupted by the dark side, but he failed, so he does whatever he can to keep Luke from falling down that path. And of course, Shota Aizawa, who knows from his own past trauma that rushing into situations can get you killed. So he's incredibly strict with his students, doing everything he can to keep them from acting irrationally and putting themselves or anyone else in danger. Part 85, the end. Ever since I was little, I've been more interested in mentor characters than protagonists. Seeing individuals who had to overcome the greatest odds, been through hell and back, and could still manage to stand on their own 2 feet was always inspiring to me. It made me feel like I could do anything. While most modern stories have some form of happy ending, the safety of the protagonist is never certain until the story's conclusion. Hell, the mentors isn't either, but you know they made it this far. They made it through something. You know that they could. You can live. You can be here. And for a lot of people, that's all the push they need. Whether you enjoy these types of characters because they provide you comfort or because you identify with them, regardless, I'm sure we'd all like to have one of them in our lives. And if we don't, maybe we can be that person for someone else. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely don't subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Bye.